Paddy's wife had been watching a fancy cooking show and decided she was going to try out a new recipe, escargot. She sends Paddy out to the market and warns him, "Don't stop at the pub on the way home." Well, Paddy being Paddy, he accidentally pops in for a quick pint. That quick pint turns into a few more. And before he knows it, it's dark and he's heading home, not very steady on his feet. As he stumbles through the gate, the porch light flips on and he sees the front door cracking open. Thinking fast, Paddy dumps the bag of escargot on the ground, points to them, and yells, "Come on now, wee lads, we're nearly there." Paddy and Murphy decide one fine sunny day to take their boat out and spend the afternoon fishing. For a time, all is well and the weather is calm. All of a sudden, Paddy and Murphy sail in an absolute unit of a storm, and water begins to pour into the boat. "Paddy, quick!" cries Murphy. "The boat is flooding." "Worry not, Murphy, I'll get the drill." "The drill? I'm drilling a hole to let the water out." Seamus, Tommy and Paddy were in a pub, having a drink, when Seamus suddenly says, "I think my wife is having an affair with an electrician. I found a set of wire cutters under the bed, and they weren't mine." Tommy then says, "That's strange. I think my wife is having an affair too, with a plumber though, as I found a wrench under my bed, and that wasn't mine either." There was a pause, and then Paddy says, "Well, my wife must be having an affair with a horse." Seamus replies, "A horse?" And Paddy says, "Yes, because I found a jockey under my bed." The teacher of the Earth Science class was lecturing on map reading. After explaining about latitude, longitude, degrees, and minutes, the teacher asked, "Suppose I asked you to meet me for lunch at 23 degrees, 4 minutes north latitude and 45 degrees, 15 minutes east longitude." After a confused silence, a voice volunteered, "I guess you'd be eating alone." Paddy McCoy, an elderly Irish farmer, received a letter from the Department for Work and Pensions stating that they suspected he was not paying his employees the statutory minimum wage, and they would send an inspector to interview them. On the appointed day, the inspector turned up. "Tell me about your staff," he asked Paddy. "Well," said Paddy, "there's the farmhand. I pay him £2 a week, and he has a free cottage. Then there's the housekeeper. She gets 190 a week, along with free board and lodging. There's also the half-wit. He works a 16-hour day, does night end of the work, earns about £25 a week, along with a bottle of whiskey, and, as a special treat, occasionally gets to sleep with my wife." "That's disgraceful," said the inspector. "I need to interview the half-wit." "That'll be me then," said Paddy. After a weekend getaway, a sergeant returned to the military base, only to find none of his soldiers had arrived on time. 3 hours passed before they began trickling in, and by then, he was ready to burst with frustration. Deciding to hear their excuses, he summoned each soldier to his office one by one. The first soldier entered, and the sergeant demanded, "Why were you late?" "Sorry, sir, here's what happened," the soldier began. "I missed the bus, tried hitchhiking, and an old man in a horse-drawn buggy offered me a ride. I couldn't refuse, but it was slow going." The sergeant muttered, surprised. "I suppose that's understandable." And he let the soldier off. This scenario repeated, with each soldier presenting the exact same tale of slow, horse-drawn travel as their reason for tardiness. Finally, the last soldier walked in, and the sergeant, now visibly irritated, sarcastically asked, "Let me guess, you hitchhiked too?" "Yes, sir." "And you got a ride?" "Yes, sir." "On a horse and buggy?" "No, sir." "No?" the sergeant questioned, taken aback. "No, sir. It was a 2014 Mercedes, sir." "Then why in the world were you late?" the sergeant demanded. "We tried to hurry, sir," the soldier replied apologetically, "but the road was completely blocked with horse-drawn buggies." A little girl was sitting in church with her mom when she started to look uncomfortable. "Mommy, she whispered. "Can we go now?" "No, sweetheart," her mom replied softly. "But I think I'm gonna throw up," the girl blurted. Mom leaned over and said, "Okay, then go out the front door and around to the back of the church. There's a bush there." The little girl nodded and hurried off. Just 60 seconds later, she came back and sat down calmly. Her mom looked at her, surprised. "You threw up already?" "Yep," the girl answered proudly. "But how did you get all the way around the church and back so fast?" her mom asked. The little girl smiled and said, "Oh, I didn't go outside, Mommy. They have a box up front that says, 'For the sick.'" An elderly patient gets hearing aids from a doctor. After a short time, he meets the doctor again. "Doctor, your hearing is perfect. Your family must be really pleased." Patient, "Oh, I am in a funny situation now. I haven't told my family yet. I just sit and listen to their conversations. In a month, I've changed my will 3 times. A man visits his doctor and says, "Doc, my wife hasn't wanted to be in with me for 6 months. I don't know what's going on." The doctor suggests, "Why don't you bring her in so I can talk to her?" The next day, the wife comes in and explains, "Well, doctor, every day I take a cab to work. I never have cash. So the cabbie says, 'Are you going to pay or what?' And I go with or what. Then I get to work late," she continues. "And my boss says, 'Should I write you up or what?' And again, I go with or what. After work, I take a cab home. No money again. The driver says, 'Pay now or what?' So, or what? By the time I get home, I'm exhausted. I just can't do it anymore." The doctor nods and says, "I see. So, are we going to tell your husband or what?" John is on his deathbed and knows the end is near. His nurse, his wife, his daughter, and 2 sons are with him. He asks for 2 witnesses other than his family to be present, and a camcorder be in place to record his last wishes. When all is ready, he begins to speak. "My son, Tom, I want you to take the Mayfair houses. My daughter, Jolene, you take the apartments over in the East End. My son, Hébert, I want you to take the offices over in the city centre. Marie, my dear wife, please take all the residential buildings on the banks of the river." The nurse and witnesses are blown away as they did not realize his extensive holdings, and as he slips away, the nurse says, "Mrs. Boudreau, your husband must have been a hard-working man to have accumulated all this property." Marie replies, "Property? The sorry son of a gun sold newspapers on the streets." A dentist noticed that his next patient, a little old woman, was nervous, so he decided to tell her a little joke as he put on his gloves. "Do you know how they make these gloves?" he asked. "No, I don't," she replied. "Well," he spoofed, "there's a building in Canada with a big tank of latex, and workers of all hand sizes walk up to the tank, dip in their hands, let them dry, then peel off the gloves and throw them into boxes of the right size." She didn't crack a smile. "Oh well, I tried," he thought. But 5 minutes later, during a delicate portion of the procedure, she burst out laughing. "What's so funny?" he asked. "I was just envisioning how condoms are made." A lady goes to her priest one day and tells him, "Father, I have a problem. I have 2 female parrots, but they only know how to say one thing." "What do they say?" the priest inquired. "They say, 'Hi, we're Do you want to have some fun?'" "That not a good," the priest exclaimed. Then he thought for a moment. "You know," he said, "I may have a solution to your problem. I have 2 male talking parrots that I have taught to pray and read the Bible. Bring your 2 parrots over to my house, and we'll put them in the cage with Francis and Jacob. My parrots can teach your parrots to praise and worship, and your parrots are sure to stop saying that phrase in no time." "Thank you," the woman responded. "This may very well be the solution." The next day, she brought her female parrots to the priest's house. As he ushered her in, she saw that his 2 male parrots were inside their cage, holding rosary beads and praying. Impressed, she walked over and placed her parrots in with them. After a few minutes, the female parrots cried out in unison, "Hi, we're Do you want to have some fun?" There was stunned silence. Finally, one male parrot looked over at the other male parrot and exclaimed, "Put the beads away, Francis. Our prayers have been answered." A blonde went to Jim's seafood store and asked Jim about the best part of the fish. Jim smirked and said, "The best part of the fish is the head. Not only is it good, but the head will make you smarter too." The blonde wanted to try and see if they are really that good. The heads were $4.34 per each, and she got 2. Later that week, she got some more and told Jim that the heads were really good. For about 3 weeks, she got fish heads. Then one day she came in, she said, "You know, I have been thinking. It's silly that I buy fish heads for $4.34 each when I could have the whole fish with the head for $300. Jim smirked again and said, "But you see, you got smarter already." The missus came home steaming drunk last night. "You up for some role-play action, babe?" she asked with a wink. "Not really," I replied. "Don't buzz now." "Oh, come on," she said. "We can act out any scene from any film you want." Walking over to her with a huge smile on my face, I noticed her expression change. She had realized her mistake. However, it was too late. Where I had previously seen arousal in her eyes, I now saw only blind terror as I shouted, "This is Sparta!" and kicked her down the stairs. A college teacher reminds her class of tomorrow's final exam. "Now, class, I won't tolerate any excuses for you not being here tomorrow. I might consider a nuclear attack or a serious personal injury or illness or a death in your immediate family, but that's it. No other excuses whatsoever." A smart guy in the back of the room raised his hand and asks, "What would you say if tomorrow I said I was suffering from complete and utter exhaustion?" The entire class does its best to stifle their laughter and snickering. When silence is restored, the teacher smiles sympathetically at the student, shakes her head, and sweetly says, "Well, I guess I'd say you'd have to write the exam with your other hand." Sarah, a recently widowed lady, was sitting on a beach towel at Cocoa Beach, Florida. She looked up and noticed that a man her age had walked up, placed his blanket on the sand nearby, and began reading a book. Smiling, she attempted to strike up a conversation with him. "Hello, sir. How are you?" "Fine, thank you," he responded and turned back to his book. "I love the beach. Do you come here often?" Sarah asked. "First time since my wife passed away last year," he replied, and again turned back to his book. "Do you live around here?" Sarah asked. "Yes, I live over in Suntree," he answered, and then resumed reading. Trying to find a topic of common interest, Sarah persisted. "Do you like cats?" With that, the man threw his book down, jumped off his blanket onto hers, tore off both their swimsuits, and gave her the most passionate ride of her life. As the cloud of sand began to settle, Sarah gasped and asked the man, "How did you know that was what I wanted?" The man replied, "How did you know my name was Cats?" So I was sitting in a Chinese restaurant last night and it suddenly went dark. The waiter came over and said, "You all need to start clapping." What a weirdo, I thought. Anyway, we all started to clap and the lights came on. I said, "How did that happen?" He replied, "Old Chinese proverb, many hands make light work." Just married and still a little shy, the wife steps out of the shower wrapped snugly in a towel. Her husband grins and says, "Come on, I've already seen you without it." "You don't need the towel." She blushes. "I just feel more comfortable like this. But I want to take a picture of you. You know, all natural," he says, trying to charm her. She narrows her eyes. "And what would you do with that picture?" He smiles sweetly. I'd keep it in my wallet, right next to my heart. She agrees. He snaps the photo and then heads off to take his own shower. A few minutes later, he returns, wrapped in his towel too. Now it's her turn. Hold up. I want a picture of you like this. He chuckles but goes along with it. Click. Picture taken. He leans over and asks, "So, what will you do with my picture?" She looks at him, then at the photo, then back at him. With a straight face, she says, "I'm going to have it enlarged." Benny's hearing has been getting worse lately, so he finally decides to buy a hearing aid. He doesn't want to spend too much money on it, so he goes to a hearing aid shop and asks the salesgirl, "How much do hearing aids cost?" "That depends on the model," she replies. "They can start from just £5 and go right up to £2,500. "So show me the $5 model," says Benny. The salesgirl puts the fine device around Benny's neck and tells him, "All you have to do is put this stud in your ear and run this length of wire down to your pocket." "Okay, so does it work?" asks Benny. "With respect, sir, for just £5 of course it doesn't work," she replies. "But when people see you wearing it, they'll talk louder." In the backwoods of Scotland, Ian's wife went into labor in the middle of the night, and the doctor was called out to assist in the delivery. To keep the nervous father to be busy, the doctor handed him a lantern and said, "Here, you hold this high so I can see what I'm doing." Soon, a wee baby boy was brought into the world. "Whoa there, Ian," said the doctor. "Don't be in a rush to put the lantern down. I think there's another wee one to come yet." Sure enough, within minutes, he had delivered a bonny lass. No, don't be in a great hurry to be putting down that lantern, lad. It seems there's yet another one besides," cried the doctor. Then Ian scratched his head in bewilderment and asked the doctor, "Do you think it's the light that's attracting them?" A man comes up to the owner of a lumberjack business and says, "I need a job and I think I'm pretty good." The owner replied, "Okay, show me what you can do. Chop down that redwood over there." The man said okay and left. 5 minutes later, he came back and was done. The owner was shocked and asked, "How did you chop that tree down so fast?" The man said, "I got a lot of practice in the Sahara." The owner replied, "You mean the Sahara Desert?" "Yes," he said, "or at least that's what they call it now." Father Murphy walked into a pub and said to the first man he met, "Do you want to go to heaven?" The man said, "I do, Father." The priest said, "Leave this pub right now." He then approached a second man. "Do you want to go to heaven?" "Certainly, Father," was the man's reply. "Then leave this den of Satan," said the priest. Father Murphy then walked up to O'Toole and asked, "Do you want to go to heaven?" O'Toole replied, "No, I don't, Father." The priest looked him right in the eye and said, "You mean to tell me that when you die, you don't want to go to heaven?" O'Toole smiled. "Oh, when I die? Yes, Father. I thought you were getting a group together to go right now." A man was blissfully driving along the highway when he saw the Easter Bunny hopping across the middle of the road. He swerved to avoid hitting the bunny, but unfortunately the rabbit jumped in front of his car and was hit. The basket of eggs went flying all over the place. Candy, too. The driver, being a sensitive man as well as an animal lover, pulled over to the side of the road and got out to see what had become of the bunny carrying the basket. Much to his dismay, the colorful bunny was dead. The driver felt guilty and began to cry. A woman driving down the same highway saw the man crying on the side of the road and pulled over. She stepped out of her car and asked the man what was wrong. "I feel terrible," he explained. "I accidentally hit the Easter Bunny and killed it. There may not be an Easter because of me. What should I do?" The woman told the man not to worry. She knew exactly what to do. She went to her car trunk and pulled out a spray can. He was driving calmly when the traffic light turned yellow. Instead of speeding up to beat the red, he did the right thing. He stopped at the crosswalk, but the woman behind him, she lost. It honking, screaming, throwing her phone, smearing her makeup, furious that she missed her chance to speed through the light. Then suddenly, tap tap. She looked up and saw a very serious police officer at her window. He told her to step out of the car, hands up, straight to the station. She was searched, fingerprinted, photographed, and placed in a holding cell. A couple of hours later, an officer returned, opened the door, and escorted her to the desk. The arresting officer handed her belongings back and said, "I'm very sorry for the mistake, ma'am. You see, I pulled up behind you while you were honking like crazy, flipping off the guy in front of you and cussing up a storm. And then I saw your bumper stickers. What would Jesus do? Choose life, license plate holder. Follow me to Sunday school. And that shiny Christian fish emblem. So naturally, I assumed the car was stolen." The mother-in-law arrives home from shopping to find her son-in-law, Paddy, in a steaming rage and hurriedly packing his suitcase. "What happened, Paddy?" she asks anxiously. "What happened? I'll tell you what happened. I sent an email to my wife, your daughter, telling her I was coming home today from my fishing trip. I get home, and guess what I found? Yes, your daughter, my wife Jean, with Joe Murphy in our marital bed. This is unforgivable. The end of our marriage. I'm done. I'm leave it forever." Now calm down, Paddy," says his mother-in-law. "There is something very odd going on here. My daughter would never do such a thing. There must be a simple explanation. I'll go speak to her immediately and find out what happened." Moments later, the mother-in-law comes back with a big smile. "Paddy, I told you there was a simple explanation. She never got your email."